Hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We got some interesting news stories we're gonna give to you. We're gonna give Mitch his due on a couple of points, which we never like to do it, but I guess his time on our political scene is setting, so we might as well tell the truth. We are the Kernels of Truth, so we're gonna go ahead and acknowledge when the guy's doing stuff that's useful, and then talk about some troubling news at a local Lexington, Kentucky progressive institution. And we're also, most thrillingly, we are going to be joined by Aftyn Behn, who is the state representative for the Tennessee General Assembly, House District 51, which is Nashville. Aftyn, quite a newsmaker, ran for Congress. I think it was earlier this year. It feels like it was earlier this year. We'll check that with her. And then also, firsthand seat for this efforts to dismantle Black political power by getting rid of the Memphis congressional district and what's been happening there. So really thrilled to be talking to her. And of course, she's a longtime former indivisible organizer. So as we are, in fact, an indivisible chapter, I guess. We know Aftyn from way back in the day, so a little bit of old homely catch up is going to happen. I'm predicting. So that's the show. Super thrilled that you joined us. Let's go ahead and do a quick check in with our co-hosts. Let us know who you are, where you are, and who's on your BITIN list this week. I am being blinded by the sun, so I might need to at some point adjust my shades so I can read my script. But I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from sunny Childsburg on the outskirts of Lexington. And my BITIN list today, it's an important one. It's the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, because he is right now proposing rolling back wastewater emission limits from coal-fired power plants, which could have a huge impact on Kentucky, because in fact it was a coal ash leak. Leak is probably not the right word. A massive coal slurry spill in Martin County in 2000 that actually started the call for these regulations. Right, they were originally issued under President Barack Obama, but were kept in place by the first Trump administration. But now in their whatever we can do to support and prop up our petroleum and fossil fuel industries, they're now looking to roll that rule back. So on my BITIN list is U.S. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, who called this weakening of clean water rules critical for making electricity more affordable and reliable for all Americans. Sure, overly restrictive policies of the past, that's just total and complete and utter garbage. So that's me. That's my BITIN list. Now let's turn to our friend Kimberly Cecil Jones. Are you there?
Yes, I am. I am very excited today. So if I stumble over my words, it's because my daughter is home from the war. She is right here live in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're going to have a late dinner tonight. So I'm just really, really excited about that. But on my BITIN list today, I was looking at Don Lemon this morning. Well, it was a couple of days ago that they talked about Ken Paxton. And Ken Paxton is really like Don Lemon and the guest that he had on. He's really Donald Trump. He's gotten out of everything. The corruption is real. He used to be the AG for the state of Texas. And Donald Trump gave him his blessing, as so he did with Bootlicking Barr and that new Gallerin guy that beat Thomas Massey. Paxton was running for U.S. Senate, and he won the primary over the incumbent. What's the incumbent's name, Aaron?
John Cornyn. Big John.
Exactly. Cornyn. And you can see the influence of MAGA. I mean, like, these people are so MAGA. I mean, you can't even see them anymore. But that's on my BITIN list. Ken Paxton, a person who was impeached by the majority of Republicans in the state legislature, a person that had many, many crimes of basically insider trading and all these type of things. He had his main people in the AG's office turning him in. He fired all of those people. These people, MAGA, they're just doing whatever they want to do. I just hope when the general election comes around that people will see through it more and more.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll say this though. He's a bad dude, Ken Paxton. I also kind of love that he's the nominee because I think that makes Talarico's bid to unseat him in Texas that much more possible.
That's what they were saying that I looked at this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, bad dude, and so bad that maybe some Republicans will stay home. But yeah, good call there. Now I'll turn to our friend down south of us in Lexington, Chris Priest. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, Chris Priest coming to in the hills of Berea, Kentucky. Now, a little outside of town.
Is it at a farm?
Yeah. So you mentioned something about my neck of the woods, the Martin County, and I had to drive through that slurry spill to get to where I grew up. So I saw the devastation that caused firsthand. Yeah, it was nasty. On my biting list is Union Busters as a little sampler to the story that I want to talk about a little bit later.
Nice. Union Busters, always on our biting list for sure. Never give those folks any quarter, any cover, and call them out wherever they are, even if it's a beloved local institution. All right, so thanks for coming along with us, team. I think we got some cool stories. I think we're gonna just go ahead. Again, full disclosure, I am trying to produce while also talking at you, so it is going to be a rough show. If you're watching on YouTube, you're gonna, hey, look, there's our biting list graphic. We had it. I didn't bring it up because I just cannot walk and chew gum. So, but we're gonna improve because we're gonna move to our next segment. And look, I've even got the right graphic. So we're going to do news of the week. Really thrilled about it. First story already teased and is coming to us from our man, Chris Priest. What do we got?
So at 3rd Street Stuff in Lexington, a beloved coffee institution in the heart of downtown Lexington, is going to be closing its doors June 1st for a while. Initially, it was said that it was going to be an indefinite period of time. I've recently heard that it's going to be 3 months. And there was like 2 reasons listed. One, some very small renovation, which would not take 3 months. And a second one is there is a transition. So the current owner, Pat, beloved person that has done some tremendous work, especially in the LGBTQ area, and the shop recently became union. Well, she's retiring, and good for her. She's worked for a very long time. She deserves retirement. But the closure is being used, or this transition is being used as I fear is an excuse to close and try to bust the union. And I will say that this is news to me from some people I personally know that work there. And hopefully we can have them on the show, sometime in the near future, and they can talk about it firsthand from themselves. So I find this very sad that the new people that are taking over, which are Pat's son and daughter-in-law, I believe, and have been around the coffee shop for a long time. I don't see necessarily the reason for shutting down for such a long time, except for the fact that they want to try to bust a union. But I find this very sad, and I was looking unfortunately looking in the comments of the Lexington Herald's article on this, and a local business owner was like, "Why should a small place have a union? Go after Walmart and Starbucks and all this other stuff." And I'm like, either you're for workers' rights or you're not. I try to run my chocolate company more as a co-op, and I'm still learning the co-op structure because our thinking more broadly, like our institutions of even of higher education don't even in businesses don't even tell or teach about co-ops hardly, worker-owned co-ops. Because I have a buddy who I've reached out to who has a master's degree in business, and I'm like, hey, could you help me with this co-op structure? And he's like, don't know what you're talking about, man. And
co-ops aren't exactly like the most important thing for MBAs to learn about, right? I don't think our corporate structure is really that thrilled about co-ops.
Yeah, it like I cried a little. Like it was just so sad that it's being beaten out, like this cooperative structure, this working together and collaboration is just being siphoned out so much from our culture. And even institutions of higher learning, like, yeah. So what do y'all think about what's happened?
Yeah, it is just tough. I was a fan of Third Street stuff. I think that grimy old progressive coffee shop vibe that I think a lot of people spend a lot of time in, that kind of third place, whatever it is. But yeah, so they have all the progressive signs on the wall. But apparently that is not exactly what they truly believe. And, we've had some communications with folks who talk to their workers and the union, and to see union busing from a place that, just espouses such, demonstrative progressive values is just gross, really. I mean, it sucks that it's tarnishing a legacy of, as you say, LGBTQ plus kind of inclusion. But yeah, a lot of people love Pat, but I think it's hard to, dispute that this is some just classic union busting that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Kimberly, what do you got?
I just think we're going to be seeing more and more of this as time goes on. And if we really check in, every state, we'll see that this is happening more and more. And then you see establishments, you see people who appeared to be on the right side of history suddenly turn for whatever reason. And I really would like to know more about the co-op myself, Chris.
I will say this: a co-op does not necessarily mean that you are union friendly either, right? REI employees have been trying to organize a union for quite some time, and they are theoretically a co-op, and that has not worked. Also, I will say this: Heine Brothers from Kim's neck of the woods, they in fact voted to form a union, and the company negotiated with them, and they have a contract, right? Whereas Starbucks coffee employees have been trying to form a union, and they have, voted in a number of locations to start a union, and the Starbucks will not negotiate with them. There is no contract. It's the same Amazon play, basically, right? So, and that's where Third Street stuff is, right? So the workers voted to form a union, but they have not been able to negotiate a contract with the owners.
Yeah, depending on the structure of the worker-owned co-op, you may or may not need a union. Like if it's huge, it's probably beneficial to have a union. Like REI is huge, but like if you've got just I don't know, a couple dozen employees or less, like everybody's got to say, you can have your meetings, whatnot, and
yeah, the co-op is the equivalent of a union in a case like that, basically, right? All right, so let's move on because we have other stories. I think Kimberly's doing this next one for us. It's an important one. It is an acknowledgement that the king is dead. I don't know. So what are you telling us about, Kimberly?
Well, I want to let you know that Congress has spent a total of $23.7 billion on state projects. So what I wanted to do was just give a brief overview. You can find more information on WLKY.com, which is a television station here in Louisville, WLKY.com. You can get more information. But it's a wonderful article, and then it's interactive, so you can check and see what your lawmaker, how much money they were allocated. And you can also see what projects that they were actually able to do. So in for the fiscal year of 2026, members of Congress funded more than 8,300 projects for their states for the fiscal year, about 170 more projects than 2024. And that information is coming from an organization which I didn't even know existed, but it's called Citizens Against Government Waste, which is a nonprofit organization. So Congress has set aside a total of $23.7 billion in earmarked appropriations, also known as federal spending, which is set aside for a project in a congressional district, locality, or state. So I want to tell you all a little bit about how much some of your lawmakers were able to get. First of all, in Congress, with your representatives, they only can handle 15 projects per year. They're only going to get money for 15 projects, but how that money is allocated and how much you get, that can be up in the air. So there is a ranking on this as well. In the Senate, in the U.S. Senate, Mitch McConnell is ranked number 2 with receiving $485.7 million for the state of Kentucky. Where did he spend that money? Some of the places was with U of L. I was a little upset about U of K, but hey, he's the senator for Kentucky. So he gave some money to them in various other projects across the state. I looked up Andy Bootlicking Barr. He is in the House of Representatives. Andy Barr is ranked number 163. Bringing home only $16.4 million. And he has put money into U of K. He's put money into the transit system, various things, a farm, firefighters, fireplaces, whatever. I looked up my congressman, Morgan McGarvey, who is ranked 302 in the House of Representatives. He brought home a total of $12.4 million. I looked up Congressman McGarvey, and he has spent the majority of his money with the Louisville, Jefferson County metro government for different programs that the government has here in our city. And then I looked up Thomas Massey, which he is ranked 342nd, bringing home a whopping $10.5 million. And most of the projects that he worked upon were also with Mitch McConnell. And some of that was with the Cincinnati airport, which does affect us, and Thomas Massey spending money on other airports. So I looked up Rand Paul, and he did not come up.
Now, that is a point of pride for Rand Paul, right? He is not going to do that. One name you failed to mention, rather, Hal Rogers actually comes in number 6 in the House. So Hal Rogers has been known as the king of pork in the House for a very long time. He's clearly slowing down because he only brought in $140.2 million, but good for 6th in the House of Representatives. I guess somebody like Thomas Massey, somebody like Rand Paul, they're like libertarian instincts, or like we don't want earmarks. We hate earmarks. Government spending is a bad thing, right? But if the government's going to spend money on these projects and programs, why wouldn't you fight for them? Why wouldn't you want them in your state or in your district? They're jobs, they're investments, it's opportunities for your constituents to take part in these projects and programs. So yeah, I'm saying bring it home. Fight for it. Mitch McConnell's obviously quite talented at bringing it home, although very, I'm sure he was very disappointed that Patty Murray kind of nicked him with like 1 million more to be top of the list. But yeah, I don't know. It's
Mitch is upset about that.
Sure.
So upset.
For if he's still alive. I don't. Are we sure that he's actually still alive, or is he just an animated corpse being kind of moved from meeting to meeting? I don't know. I just have really good staff that was able to still make the.
Can I say this though? I think when people are running, they should really go to WLKY.com. And I'm sure the link will be in our comments as well and on our Facebook. But I think it's really, really important. I've been playing around with it. I love it. I'm looking at, Jasmine Crockett and, just everybody, how much money that they're receiving. I think if there's an election and it is an incumbent, I think it would behoove us as voters to look at the type of money that they're bringing in and what are they spending that money on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I will say this: I really don't want Hal Rogers to be sent back to Congress. I really want Ed Pillersdorf to take him down. I think tough fight for sure. That district is, but if there's any district that deserves better political representation, because if you're like legislating for outcomes, things are not going well in Hal Rogers' district, right? Despite however much federal money is being spent there, in terms of poverty, it's leading the nation. In terms of education, it is like lagging the nation. So that district needs help that Hal Rogers has not been able to deliver, no matter how many federal projects or big highways happen in the fifth.
It depends on what they're spending the money on.
Yeah. All right, so we got to move on because really want to get to our guest, but we have one other, kind of related story. So this one I had to call out, and maybe Mitch is now joining the grievance brigade. I don't know. So this is a good sign that Trump is not pleasing all members of the GOP establishment, is that his crazy slush fund of $1.8 billion, $1.776 billion that he negotiated with himself over his bullshit lawsuit over his tax release, which every other president just releases their taxes so we can see them. His, of course, were leaked by a IRS employee, so he sued for billions, $10 billion, because that makes sense. And then he settled with himself for the creation of this $1.8 billion slush fund that he will use to pay insurrectionists who he say were threatened by weaponized DOJ. Of course, every accusation is an admission, and his DOJ is, of course, the most weaponized ever. But when this was being discussed, Todd Blanche, acting AG, accused very poignantly of being, acting personal attorney for Donald Trump, basically wearing two hats as this is moving forward. He was blasted by Mitch McConnell saying in a statement, "So the nation's top law enforcement official is asking for a slush fund to pay people who assault cops. Utterly stupid, morally wrong. Take your pick," McConnell said. So this was, again, we're the girls of truth, people. We're not going to lie about this. This was I think, useful and important statement. We appreciate Mitch making it. Of course, if Mitch ever did the right thing, we wouldn't be in this position, because he's the guy who could have let them actually impeach in the Senate. So we wouldn't ever have Donald Trump darkening our door again, but he just didn't have the strength to do it, the courage to do it, or just the ability to project that the voters would ever put Trump back in this place. But here we are. So thanks for nothing, Mitch. Better late than ever, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys think about Mitch's awakening that Trump's horribly morally corrupt and complicit in this stuff?
He said a lot of meaningful statements of that he knows that what Trump did was wrong and how he incited the violence and stuff, but then still goes and votes the wrong way. It's like, what's good? What good is all these words that showing that you have a conscience or somewhat of one, but then go vote the wrong way?
Yeah. But we split it. I think Mitch split off for a couple of the most egregious, cabinet nominees. But yeah, he has not been any sort of resistance individual, right? So yeah, good to see the statement. We'll see if he ever votes to do anything. I don't know. Kimberly, any thoughts?
Mitch McConnell is going to be exactly who he's always been, and he did his job. So I'm not going to give him a lot of kudos and all this and that, because of the decades of oppression, corruption, and voting in nobody else's interest, however, but his own. I will remember that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And of course, let's not forget this organization was founded because we wanted to take down Mitch McConnell. We were, in fact, founded as the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee around that 2020 election. Obviously, didn't exactly go the way we wanted on that one, but he did eventually retire, so we'll claim the victory. But at that time, if we think back to Progress Kentucky lore, we were supported in a lot of our work by our next guest. So we were a new indivisible chapter. We were trying to figure out what the heck we could do. We were mostly, founded by folks who had been organizers and volunteers in the 2018 House race, the 2019 governor's race, and didn't necessarily just want to be volunteers, but wanted to kind of lead our own thing. And so we decided we wanted to take on Mitch in a certain specific way, somebody who met our interest and enthusiasm and really inspired and encouraged us to do that work was Aftyn Behn, who at that time was the indivisible organizer for Tennessee and Kentucky. Now is the state representative for Tennessee's General Assembly District 51. She's been at the center of a lot of interesting news stories over the past year or so, and we are just absolutely thrilled to be joined by her this evening. So we're welcoming Aftyn Behn, first time on the show since we've been Kernels of Truth, I think. But how are you, and what the heck's going on? And tell me, how in the heck does an indivisible organizer end up a member of such a hallowed institution as the Tennessee General Assembly?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I think I'm a long-time listener, but first-time caller. I always love that joke. So it's nice to see you all, familiar faces. Yeah, so back in the day, I think maybe we'll go back to when Trump was elected the first time. I was actually working at the UN in Switzerland and decided to move back to Tennessee, where I grew up, to get involved in politics. I remember breaking the news to my parents that I wanted to find a career in Tennessee politics, to which my mom responded with sobbing so hard that she had to be escorted out of the restaurant. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I look back at that time. I'm sure she's proud of me now, but that was not. She was not the most proud of me at that moment. And I was really lucky because I ended up being hired by a nonprofit that was engaged in healthcare advocacy. And if you all remember correctly, Trump 1.0 went after the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid. And it was in that advocacy and organizing that when National Indivisible came to Tennessee in 2019 and said, we want to hire an organizer to help organize our groups. Who do you all want? They said me. And so I ended up getting this job. I was one of the first tranche of hirees for National Indivisible, which was this, small but mighty operation with all these groups. And then I was lucky enough to take on Kentucky during the 2020 Senate race and worked with you all on the ground and made, so many friends, and just will never forget my time, especially canvassing against Mitch McConnell in Eastern Kentucky in particular. There's one kind of story that can't be eliminated. I'm sorry, my pug is driving me nuts. When I was knocking in a holler in Breathitt County, Kentucky, and I believe one of JD Vance's, one of his many family members came out and said, I don't like Democrats, but I'm going to vote for Andy Beshear. Oh, it was 2019. I was canvassing for Andy Beshear. And so I have a long track record organizing in Kentucky. And then I wanted to, I was hired as a political director for a national group called Rural Organizing that helps pass rural progressive policies at the federal level, as well as building rural progressive political power. And that was the time that I wanted to just be done with Tennessee politics. I think as you all as Kentuckians can attest to this cycle of emotions that you run through in a Southern state, which is I'm done. I like to say that it's like Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. But you're just done, with your state. I'm never doing anything. Don't call me. I don't want to show up and organize a rally and a protest. Well, April 2023, we had a school shooting, and two of my now colleagues in the Tennessee House representatives were expelled for crossing an arbitrary line in the sand. And myself and other professional organizers were called in. And I took 2 weeks off of work to help organize all these rallies and protests. And I decided in kind of the aftermath of that Tennessee needed more progressive female voices in the General Assembly. So I'm someone who never wanted to run for office, which I think that's important to talk about the congressional run. So I've been a state legislator in Tennessee. I represent downtown Nashville. I think I have the best House district in the state, which they'll probably redraw me out of in the next few years. And I've been a legislator for 3 years now. And I think I'm unique because I use my legislative office to run organizing campaigns. And so I'm very blessed because my district is very privileged. It's very engaged. And so when I say, hey, like I need to take time to organize across the state to end the grocery tax, they have my back. And I could not be more blessed to have the district I have, as they understand that I use the positionality and privilege of my House district to move the needle in a state like Tennessee. Well, as the old adage goes, when you get pissed off, you run for office. No, that's mine. And I was so enraged in May of 2025. So we had an unprecedented ICE operation. We experienced an unprecedented ICE operation with our Tennessee Highway Patrol. And just to give you some insight, as a legislator, I had no idea that this was happening. We didn't even know that the Highway Patrol had an agreement with ICE. And if you are a government watchdog, you should be scared of how your state governments are operating right now with federal agencies. It's really jarring. And out of that, they pulled over, I think, 360 of our neighbors. I witnessed them kidnapping some of my constituents. And as a result of that incident, when this congressional race came to fruition, I wanted a Democrat that would not throw immigrants under the bus at the altar of politics. And so I knew it was going to be a highly nationalized race. It was the last special election in the entire country, with the election on December 2nd. And I know you all lived through that with me. And, I was right. And just, for some inside kind of baseball for your listeners, when we heard the race was probably going to happen, those of us that were interested in running were convened to basically pitch each other on being the candidate. And I was the only one who had a theory of change. And that theory of change, again, proved again to be true, correct throughout the campaign, which was one, I understood innately as a former indivisible organizer how this national ecosystem's spigot is turned on when there is a special election like this. And we all lived through Doug Jones's Senate race, through the Indivisible Network and that organizing. And so I knew that if I was the candidate, that this would be the response. And that proved to be true. I had also been organizing around ending the grocery tax in Tennessee, of which my name has become synonymous with ending Tennessee's grocery tax. And so you had to have a candidate that had a track record, engaged in economic issues. And then finally, I had the highest total voter turnout of any Democratic state rep. Mind you, my district is 75% Democrat. I'm in one of those gerrymandered districts. And I turned out more Democrats than any other, or more voters than any other state race in the state of Tennessee. As a Democrat. And so I knew how to turn out Democrats, right? And then also as a rural organizer and organizing in Kentucky and across the country, in battleground rural in Senate states with a large rural constituency, I knew how to lose less in rural communities. And all of that proved to be true. And so whether, my haters and the cynics like to believe this or not, there are now Trump Behn voters living in the United States of America. So I guess I'll stop there, but that's in my trajectory.
Amazing. Yeah. So also, I won't say I'm surprised that this isn't part of your lore and your overall narrative story, but I'm pretty sure, and I think this is right. I'm trying to remember, but I'm pretty sure it was you. So when we first launched this live stream, I was talking to you because you're the organizer for the Indivisible groups. We're an Indivisible group. And I'm like, hey, I've got this idea. We're doing this live stream weekly. We want to make it an ongoing thing. But I think I need a co-host. Who do you think I should get as a co-host? And Kimberly also, who I've not ever like really spent any time with, but was an Indivisible organizer, like at Volunteer with Indivisible in Louisville. I think you're like, I think Kim Cecil Jones does this kind of stuff. I think you should talk to her. And so thank you for making that happen.
I totally forgot. That means, oh my gosh, my heart is so full. Wow.
And I'm still here, Aftyn. I'm still here too. After all these years, I'm still here.
And you know what? It's such a testament. Like, and I cried a lot the past month, and we'll get into the special session, but like, it's such a testament to not only like the fabric and the community that we've created, but like, this is, you know, our legacy. And to be, you know, I find myself so grateful, as terrible as my life is as a Southern legislator dealing with deportations, death, and destruction every day, that I find myself so grateful to be alive at this moment in time in American politics. And I don't know if you all feel the same, but.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster. So I'm done with this. Every session, you know, at the end of the session, like, Jesus, these people are horrible. What in the world? Why are we doing this? We made Mark, you know, but then I talked to somebody like Senator Reggie Thomas, who like finds those like glimmers of hope. We had him on a few weeks back, and I'm always so inspired after he comes on the show, because he finds the way to stay, you know, inspired and do that work. And he's one of, you know, 8 Democratic senators gets his victories. So yeah, we got to find the victories. We got to celebrate the victories. But yeah, I think you're totally right, Aftyn. We got to like celebrate the community that's doing this important work day in and day out, and give people the grace to like step out and have their time away, like, because everyone deserves some of that too. But not for the next 6 months, people. We got important stuff we got to do. Kim,
I don't feel so excited about this time in life. When I go to sleep, I just dream that we're back in the time of the Obama era. That's all I could do, to just hang on, just remember the good old days. That's when I think America.
You gotta go back further to get the good old days.
No, we're not going to make America great again. But I tell you what, America was great with Obama in office. I'm going to stand on that. But I do have a question for you, Miss Aftyn. So proud of you, girl. So very, very proud of you. And that you even you know us little folks. You know what I'm saying? You remember us little folks. And that's what it's supposed to be, right? But you know, let's go back to the special election.
Yeah.
I mean, your face was everywhere. MSN Now, CNN, Fox News, unfortunately, Reuters, Associated Press. I can go on and on and on and on. But I want to know, walk us through what happened for you to come to that decision that you wanted to run for Congress. How did you feel while you were running? And then to do the concession speech, to get up there and smile through everything when you're so exhausted. What was going through your mind? So just walk us through that. Don't give us the good rendition. Give us the raw, the real. Did you cry that night? I mean, you know, walk us through that.
Yeah, and thank you for asking. I think this question has so many layers, and I'm grateful. And I just want to provide a caveat that I wouldn't be here without you all. Period. End of statement. And anyone, I mean, it takes a village to raise an organizer, to nurture an organizer, to nurture a candidate, and like I wouldn't be here without you all in Kentucky. So I wanted to say that. I love this question because oftentimes, and for those congressional candidates that are listening, this is my biggest pet peeve, is when particularly men, roll out of bed on a Tuesday morning without have never organized anything in their lives, roll out of bed and like, you know what? I'm the candidate for Congress. I am the one that is going to usher in the most prosperity this country has ever seen by me being on the ballot. And like that type of, I mean, I can't get over it, because for me, as you all know, like I have been in the trenches for the past 10 years doing the really hard labor of not only building the infrastructure, but fighting all of this, terrible fascism. And so it took me 4 weeks to decide to run. And in those 4 weeks, I was looking for, and I think like I'm really happy to kind of surface this as an introspective exercise, because what I was looking for was community validation and affirmation from voters in that district that they wanted me to run without me explicitly saying it. And so oftentimes, like, there will be national people that ask you to run. There will be, your peers. But I was looking for specific signifiers within the district that I was the right candidate. And lo and behold, I was kind of in my tail end. I had, called all of my immediate circle asking, should I run? And I was expecting hesitation, and all of them without even finishing their breath said, absolutely, you should absolutely do this. My former boss, Matt Hildreth, who was Kamala's rural director for her presidential race, my parents, my partner, my campaign manager. And so everyone was on board. And then I just kind of had to do the final mental gymnastics to get there. But I had been scheduled to speak at a rural county party meeting within the 7th congressional district. And this had been pre-scheduled as I was considering running. And I go to this meeting and it's packed. There's like 60 people there. I was not expecting that. In fact, I had 2 margaritas before I went because I thought it was just going to be like 5 people at a table. And I show up and I'm like, oh my gosh. And all these people came to see me. And in that, when we were engaged in the Q&A part of the discussion, this little girl stands up and she says, my name is Betty Ann. And she was Hispanic. And she said, I work the front desk at the international school at MTSU. And my friends are being deported. And I saw you stand up for immigrants. And I know that you stood up against ICE. And I showed up today. This is my first Democratic Party meeting I've ever attended, but I wanted to know that you have support. And I'm just like bawling my eyes out in front of these people. But for me, it was such an indicator of like, you have support. The people are with you. You don't have to try to like make something happen. Like people want to feel that they are being fought for. And I think that's what I brought to this moment. And then in addition to that, as I indicated, I've been, engaged in organizing with a lot of the political organizations in the state, including the immigrant organizations, including the Black-led organizations. And these groups, they knew inherently that I was not going to throw these voters under the bus, because it is not part of, that is not my ethos. And I'm someone who runs, straight in, and not sacrificing my values, right? But ensuring that these communities are cared for. And so as we get to the congressional race, I had a brutal primary with 3 other men. In fact, I was the only woman out of 13 candidates, both in the Republican and Democratic primary. I was the only woman to run. And I think that spoke to like the fear, just how, excruciating it is to be a woman to run. And it was. I mean, I had, so the primary, I'm really glad it happened. Once again, like as someone who's fomented a lot of primaries in the South, I felt like it was karmic. Like I understood why primaries are important. And these rural communities were so excited to host us. They really felt like we were, trying to get their votes. And I want to say that like, this idea that there is a perfect candidate for these gerrymandered districts is just not true. And I'm going to give you an example. The 2 other legislators that ran in that primary, one had done a lot of rural organizing. He's got a Southern accent. Some of his entire House district was in the congressional district. And if it wasn't gerrymandered to include some of the, the highest propensity turnout precincts in Nashville, he would have been the best candidate. Additionally, there's a Black legislator who represents North Nashville. But if the district hadn't included these like really Trump MAGA, rural Republican districts, he would have been the best candidate. But I was the best candidate because of, as I indicated, my track record, increasing Democratic votes and then losing less in rural communities, in rural Republican communities. So the primary was over, and this is like, I guess, the inside baseball, but we had been like, we immediately pivoted, and we started raising money. We had been knocking like thousands of doors a week throughout October. So the primary was October 7th. Those 4 weeks, like the entire county party infrastructure, and I want to give a nod to the county parties and the 3 counties with the highest propensity of Democrats. They were ready to go. They had been canvassing. They had built the infrastructure necessary to sustain this type of congressional race. And so that was immediately turned on, and we were knocking thousands of doors, right? So first week of November hits. Trump and his political team gets the results back of the poll that they conducted, and it showed us within like 2 to 4 points. And they're like, what the and they are just I can imagine the scene. Like, they are losing their minds. So they decide, Trump's PAC had been dormant. They decided to resuscitate it. And they scheduled almost, I want to say $3 million worth of ads from the second week of November to the election. And what was problematic, and just like a few kind of insights, like it was really, we were knocking 10,000 doors a week by the time the campaign ended. And it was such a misinformation and disinformation inoculation tactic, because what we would do is, like, we'd knock a door, we would see that they'd be watching Fox News. They'd come to the door and they're like, well, Aftyn hates country music, which, can I just say for the record, I was conceived after a George Strait concert. I just need to say that on the record. But like, what's hilarious is, as a trauma response to this campaign, I've only started buying country Western wear. So like, you're catching me on a day where I'm wearing a Mexican jersey, but I'm usually like decked out in nudie suits now because of like the trauma response from this. So we had been knocking tens of thousands of doors. We've outraised him on the candidate side. So I had raised $3 million by the end of it. And then finally, like, because Trump started spending money, national entities decided that it was worth investing in. And unfortunately, it was just too late. It was also strategic on the Republican side to schedule the election the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And so what is like the worst kind of recipe for a loss? It is hundreds of thousands of people watching TV as a captive audience during Thanksgiving weekend, when you're able to pummel the airwaves with negative ads about me. So, and unfortunately, that was just how it happened. The entire month of November, I had walking pneumonia. I was the sickest I've ever been in my life. And I think I'm grateful that all of you on the other side looked and was like, oh, she's got it together. But I was dying. Like, the moment that the New York Times reported that the RNC had a 70-page dossier on me. And the day that dropped into their far-right media ecosystem, it took my breath away. I mean, I walked outside and I was hissed at. I looked up on the TV and saw Tommy Lauren talking about me on Fox News. I had, it was just like the ons, and I granted, I was the focal point for the entire country. I am embarrassed to say that I was naive in thinking it wouldn't be that bad, but it was. And so just the kind of onslaught, coupled with me being the sickest I've ever been in my life, it was a really miserable experience. And then on election night, I wore a nudie suit because I knew Fox News was going to be at my election night party. So I was decked out in like this wonderful vintage suit that apparently Loretta Lynn wore. And I remember, like, I was just going through the minutiae, and to be frank, like, I wanted to lose by 1 point. For me, knowing what they spent, and there are some cynics and critics that say, look at the amount she lost by. It wasn't as, she didn't lose as there were further gains in other special elections. But what they don't understand is Trump didn't spend any money in those elections. He spent $7 million to lose by 9 points. And we moved a district from 22 points to 9. And so I remember, like, I blacked out my entire election. I watched party. I must have taken like 700 photos, but I do remember walking out with Senator Charlene Oliver, who was our political director. And I'm like walking out, and it was, a giant venue, and I'd been here for concerts. And I'm like, what are all these people doing here? I mean, there was like 1,000 people. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why are they all here? Because for me to go from like, organizing in Paducah, Kentucky with like 5 people to like, pulling teeth to get people to come to our events. It's like, oh my God, all these people were here. And there were so many just, random, random folks were coming up to me and being like, I saw you on TikTok. Like, I'm here. And so I was so inspired, I think, by the feedback and the juxtaposition of just how tough it was for me individually versus like the hope, as the youth said, the hopium, and the joy and the optimism that I think, people saw on the outside, which I was grateful for, because I didn't want, anyone to know that I was miserable. But I will be able to look back at this experience fondly. I will. I'm not there yet. But I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I know that I was the right candidate. And I'm grateful to tell that story to you all tonight.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing it. Yeah. And I think those special elections, especially at that moment when there was just such anguish about what Trump was doing to our country, to have the entire it was the MSNBC then, different historical moment, but you have them all tuned into you and what you're doing. And we were so glad to, hop on the indivisible led phone banks and do everything we could to turn people out. And I talked to a lot of great voters, conservative voters, who were thrilled to vote for you because of what Trump was doing to our country. So having that kind of able to capture that national engagement was really the right strategy. And to, shift a district that much is, amazing. So, I think, Chris, did you want to ask about the current state of affairs?
Yes. I mean, what a wonderful story. That was incredible, and I'm sorry they went after you so bad, but yeah. So like, there's crazy stuff going on all the time, and currently in Tennessee, they're trying to remove Black Power voters from in Memphis and gerrymander that crazy whole thing. So could you give us a first hand account of like, what in the world? How are they pulling this off? Like, what are they doing?
One thing I'll say, because I can extrapolate it to this moment. My best friend flew in for the election night, the few days before the election day. And she kept reiterating, like, this is your life. Like, this is how it is 12 hours a day. Like, just funneling calls, driving my stick shift, like dealing with the chaos, organizing responses. And yes, that is how it is. And unfortunately, that's how it's been in Tennessee for the last 15 years. For me, this was really this special session to redraw our congressional maps, and I'll provide the 30,000 foot view in a minute, but it's really, for me, the point of no return in this political project. Either the end of the political project of this United States, the end of Jim Crow 2.0, but this really, for me, is this is the point of no return. So for your listeners, and all of this, meanwhile, like we had an independent of the congressional maps special session, we had just finished a diabolical legislative session where Stephen Miller was on weekly calls with our Republican leadership to pass a slate of immigration bills. And just recently, the House Speaker showed up with a proclamation to honor Stephen Miller for his service to Tennessee. And just to give you some insight, these bills, it forced schools, hospitals to report immigration status. And not only that, but if you are an employee and you fail to report within 90 days, you are criminally prosecuted. They passed a secret police force that is immune from public oversight that can conduct covert and overt investigations under the Department of Homeland Safety, which is also a brain product of a project of Stephen Miller. So this was like on the heels of all of this, right? And so like, I'm done with session. I'm trying to just recuperate from the compounded stress through that, right? And then I start hearing, so as soon as the Supreme Court in late April comes out with a decision that guts the Voting Rights Act. And for your listeners, plaintiffs, voters who wanted to file a lawsuit that supported by the VRA, right, could file based on two kind of stipulations. One was that the legislator's intent, so the map maker's intent to make the maps racist and or whatever, or just that it was inherently a certain way, drew a certain way. So the Supreme Court gutted the VRA, and now, which allowed states, basically gave states the green light to redraw their congressional maps, because not only did the Supreme Court endorse it, but President Trump is now tweeting, we need southern states to redraw their congressional maps ahead of midterms, because he knows he's going to lose. That's just what polling is saying. So then I'm in my car and someone says, or no, I go to the legislature and they're like, oh, are you getting ready for the special session? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And Marsha Blackburn had gone on Fox News and was regurgitating Trump's talking points that we're going to have a special session to redraw our maps. So here in my mind, I'm like, I just got done with this hellacious session. There's no way that they are going to call us back after all of this, right? And it may be this summer, right? Well, immediately they call us back in for a special session. Tennessee has 9 congressional districts. The last remaining congressional district is Memphis. And they already cut, mind you, like for your listeners, they cut Nashville into 3 congressional districts. And as the congressional candidate that ran in that election, you could have not had a more tangible experience of American gerrymandering. My current House district, they were trying to vote. People who would vote in the specific congressional district 7, of which I ran in, were trying to. I mean, it was nuts, and that is the goal. And so they wanted to do this for Memphis, and so we were called into a special session. It was miserable. We wanted to make their lives miserable. In fact, like the anecdote that I tell about this moment, I was an absolute goblin in the legislature. Like I remember I have these acrylic fingernails, and I saw 2 Republicans in the elevator and the door was closing, and I went like this and pulled the doors open and got in their faces, and I was like, if you vote for these maps, I will never speak to you again. And they're just like cowering in the corner. I mean, I did not care. I'm like, this is so far beyond. And so I would get out of the elevator and they would just scatter. I was livid. So anyways, it took 3 days. They called us back into a special session. And it was miserable. I mean, it was so sad. And I felt so bad for these Black legislators who, have been not only organizers, towards in support of the VRA, but then now we're seeing their representation removed, as a retrenchment to progress. And it was awful. So immediately lawsuits were filed, and unfortunately, this does not portend well for the outcome. But recently, the Chancery Court dismissed injunctive relief, and so this doesn't bode well. Federal courts are the last line, but as we know, the judiciary has been co-opted, so this does not bode well. And I just as an important note before we dig in, Tennessee is inherently problematic because all of the other states around us, including South Carolina, their Republicans stood up in opposition to this effort. And they said, this is insane. We are not doing this. And so there's something unique about Tennessee. And I have a theory, and I've had this theory as it relates to why Kentucky has Medicaid and Tennessee doesn't have Medicaid, is because we don't have a majority-minority population like the Deep South has, right? So like Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina. There are a lot of Black voters in those states, and you do not want to piss them off. Tennessee's minority population is a little less than 20%. Kentucky, it's a lot less than that. And so when I was trying to understand why you all have such a more robust state apparatus, it's oftentimes because racism is always apparent, right? But you've been able to pass like major public programs because there's a lot more poor white people than there is poor Black folks in Kentucky. And so Tennessee is just uniquely situated. It's just a unique situation. And the fact that they were able to do this within 3 days and they're lauding and celebrating the outcome is just all you need to see and hear to be like, okay, this political project is over.
Yeah, I don't know. Just absolutely heartbreaking to see the rush, right? I will say this. It seems like Tennessee does an impressive job of dramatic opposition, right? So you guys, I feel like, do not take it lying down. And you're going to make them push you back and, use their power to take away your power, right? So, I mean, you're pointing out a letter, like, So what happened? Because you guys because you were a goblin, what happened?
Yeah, and I was and for your listeners, like I was in my element. Like, as terrible as it was, like the only way to disassociate was me like in full theater kid mode, which apparently has become an insult from the far right. In fact, I was in an article, a New York Times article with Mom Donnie, that they're calling us theater kids. But anyways, I co-opted Stop the Steal language. And so like I was on my calls, I'm like, calling all patriots to the Capitol, 12 o'clock, stop the steal, stop the Tennessee steal. And like, it was so epic that like people had stickers made and they were passing them out at the legislature, and like, like just co-opting all, because it was true. It's like, this is the real steal. Like, what are you talking about? And they were losing their minds over it. So as a result, and the day of the special session of the vote, I was very proud of the Black Caucus, because they unified in a unified fashion, said we are going to break decorum, we are going to break House rules, we are going to stand arms linked on the House floor and walk out in the well, which is what the two Justins were expelled for in 2023. We were going to stand with each other in the well, and the organizers and groups there was something that sounded like sirens. And so it was just like, we wanted to make this as miserable of an experience as possible for them, as politically toxic as possible for them. And as a result, the House Speaker kicked us off all of our House committees, which my response was like, oh, the Ag Committee is really it's gonna really be a buzzkill that I'm not there this summer. Like, please. And once again, I was proud of our leader Camper, who is our Black female leader from Memphis. She was resolute in her response to the House Speaker, and she basically said, you know what, you around and found out. And I was great. Like, the Dems have been really unified, and I'm really grateful. I would have loved to have gotten arrested. Like, it was, if there had been some, organization. I think this moment, in particular, calls for, there to be fighters in the legislature. And so, however that looked like, but I was honored to be part of that moment. I think it's the most like unified we've felt in a long time.
Yeah. Well, it was impressive to watch from afar. I think, give Kim or Chris any final questions. We've gone long, which I'm glad to have done. Even I would say, I think we'll be able to get this one wrapped up a little bit sooner. But, the kind of front seat to history you've got right now in this moment, it's really impressive, and it's just does my heart proud to see invisible organizer doing this work, and it's so important. And yeah, it's like organizing this in the South sucks. Organizing in these GOP super duper majorities is just frustrating. But what are your words of, like, I don't know, we're in the wilderness now, right? Like, we are absolutely in the wilderness right now. We're celebrating 250 years. It was a nice run. If we make 251, I'll be really shocked. But it'll be because of folks like us, I think, doing this work. But yeah, what do you tell us to, like, keep, or tell yourself to keep going day in and day out?
Well, I wanted, Dr. Jones, did you have a question? I didn't know if you came off mute.
Oh, no, I was just getting prepared in case I needed to interject.
Okay.
The time. Aaron, that was directed towards you.
Oh, good. Yeah. No, I totally understand. So I think what gives me hope in this moment, as the kind of concluding epoch that we're in around the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, I have been totally inspired by seeing institutional legacy organizations like the NAACP calling for boycotts of the SEC, for example, athletic boycotts of the SEC. I have been inspired by Black mayors using language around, like, and the mayor in Atlanta recorded a video and said this, but he's like, don't call me for your corporate problems if you're not going to help us with our societal problems. And that type of the nexus of like corporate accountability, understanding how corporations are playing a role in the dissolution of our democracy. I'm seeing more kind of middle of the road, not only politicians, but like, the wine moms, like, are like in full goblin mode over these corporations who are bankrolling this tragedy. For example, in Tennessee during the special session, there were realtors across the state that realized the Tennessee Real Estate PAC, so the State Association of Realtors, is like one of the largest funders of the Republican caucus. And so you had realtors being like, I'm opting out of those PAC contributions. This is messed up. And so it's going to take a lot more of that. And I'm really inspired by a lot of that organizing. And I think we just need more and more of that. There has to be economic consequences to their actions. The other, I think in my bones, this is what allows me to sleep at night, but I have young people, Gen Z mostly, that I have trained, and I spend a lot of my time and energy and resources training the next generation to lead, because what's going to happen, and these are just like, historical and kind of cultural foreboding phenomenons, which is, a lot of the boomers are going to pass away. There's going to be a vacuum of leadership because the gerontocracy will vacate those positions. There is going to be, the privatization of our states. Like, how do we support young people in rebuilding the state apparatus? How do we support young people in running for office? And so next week, I'm going to be like in my little summer internship cohort. I've got like 30 interns on the legislative and political side that I'll be training, because I want to leave this place. My legacy is like these young people and their contributions. And they are so, I think it's so easy to embrace nihilism as a young person in this country. And the young people that I'm surrounded by are just so wound up and excited and have this insatiable thirst for organizing in politics in a way that I never had. And I do believe in my I have to believe this in my bones, but I do think with these kind of cultural shifts that we will see some of the greatest, some of the most transformative legislation this country has seen since the New Deal. And I truly believe that.
Awesome. Kim, final question.
I'm just so glad to have Aftyn on here. You have just kicked so much knowledge today. If people don't listen or look at this, I don't know what to tell them. They can learn so much today in a short length of time. But I just my wish for you just keep being you. And don't worry about what those people say. Don't have any trauma about it, anything, because you are you. I know you personally. You're a hard worker. You got a good heart. And that's what it's going to take. And also giving tutelage to these young kids. And I'm glad that you've got the good ones, because I can't work with kids too much. I don't want to be on the 6 o'clock or the 11 o'clock news, Kimberly Cecil Jones, because I have to teach you what your mama and your daddy didn't. But at any rate, I got your number, Aftyn. I'm going to be coming through Nashville pretty soon. So
Yes, ma'am.
Call you up and then I can like film it, and then we'll take it back to Kernels of Truth.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'll take you to my district, of which Fox News says I think that was the biggest, is like Aftyn hates country music, which like broke my heart. Like, I'm like, how can anyone think I hate country music? But yeah, no, don't listen to the haters. You're right. Don't feed the trolls. If you're running for office, my number one rule is don't feed the trolls.
With the bridal party.
Jay-Z said, shake the brush those haters off.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the bridal parties, though, really, right?
No comment.
Fair enough. Chris, any final thoughts?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all these stories. It's been wonderful.
Oh my God. I've been trying to track, like, for me, it's really important to document not only the decline, but these personal stories, because I think like it's just, I'm really grateful to live a very colorful life, and I'm just honored that you all have been part of it. So thank you.
Yeah. Remember the first time I met you, and you had a Mitch McConnell, like full size. I think he was broken, so you like had to prop him up a little bit. But yeah, bringing that one around the state. Appreciate you and all your hard work. I hope you're writing this down. I hope you have a book. Because it seems like you definitely need to write a book before they outlaw all of them. Representative Aftyn Behn, oh my gosh, what an honor. So glad you made the time. I know you got a billion other things you got to do, so I'm going to let you get back to your pug. But appreciate all the work.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Kimberly, I know you need to get out of here. So do you want me to close the show or?
Can you please? My daughter is outside.
All right.
On
I'm
me.
closing the show. You all, thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
everything. Chris,
Bye.
Kim, y'all, great conversation tonight with the one and only Aftyn Behn. So Kernels of Truth, the show you've just watched. Kernels of Truth is here it is. It's a nonprofit. Oh, I know this. It's a nonprofit organization. We're registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State. We are organized as a 501c4. Means we can do politics, people. We're affiliated with the Indivisible Project and Common Ground Kentucky Action. We are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Our goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. I'm going to be back next week. We're going to have a special co-host coming back in town. Former city council member, former Senate candidate, former good troublemaker, Denise Gray is going to be co-hosting with me and telling some stories about her work. Production of episode 260 was kind of by me. Nice try, buddy. Nate Orshan wrote and performed our theme song. It's a humdinger. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcasts and our show notes are available on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now. Oh, and if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, share it on out. Help us defeat the billionaire-backed algorithms and help get our content out there. So thank you so much for joining us. Great show, great chat with Aftyn Behn.